All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. It's Thursday and a little bit of a late start actually because I was trying to get my Instagram feed or the Instagram feed, I should say. It's not really mine, but well, it's my Chrome feed of AOC's rebuttal to Trump's State of the Union speech to pop out. It's really frustrating. I'm really irritated by all of this. AOC gave like her personal reaction to what Trump had to say on her Instagram page. And I wanted to play some of it. She goes after him apparently, and I didn't watch it. I haven't seen all of it. It's 53 minutes. But she went on about his plans to cut Medicaid, Medicare, especially Medicaid, right? That's apparently the easiest thing he could cut, and that the Republicans will cut. I mean, ultimately, it's a budget that Congress submits. This was discussed in part on Halitics on Facebook, which I do strongly urge you, if you haven't yet, join, because I think the conversation there is just a lot. It's a higher end. I mean, it's just better quality than what you're going to find in most places. Certainly, I think than you'll find on AOC's Instagram page, for example. So it's disappointing. In fact, I posted a positive encomium that Johnny had sought approval for, about how AOC really nailed Trump, and I approved it. And I said, yeah, that makes a good point. She makes a good point, because the massive cuts, the $4.5 billion or whatever that he wants to slash out of or the $2 billion, I guess he wants to slash out of the budget. Is it billion or trillion? I don't even know. It couldn't be trillion, right? That seems like too much. But whatever it is, the enormous amounts of money that are going to be taken out of the budget by the Republicans will hurt significantly many Trump voters. And AOC makes a good point. So I think, that's what Democrats should be focusing on, is policies that hurt Republicans, that the Republican president and the Republican Congress are enacting. They should say, hey, this is going to hurt you. Cutting Medicaid is going to hurt you. You depend on government provided health care. Many, many millions of you do. And we're going to protect it now. Will they really? I mean, we can't, the Democrats have been terrible at protecting the working class, the middle class. That's not what they care about. That's not what they do. But on the other hand, the Republicans are probably, arguably, even worse. I've always said this. If you want to win elections, go after the other side's base and explain how the policies that their candidate promotes are going to hurt them. And then you have to say, we'll do better. It's not enough to just say Trump's really bad. You have to also show that you'll be better. But, that's good. Medicaid is a good program. It really is. It's something that makes life better. It makes life even livable for many, many people. For many tens of millions, I think 70 million Americans now, 1/5, get some kind of Medicaid assistance in their family. So this is a big deal. And the budget cuts, what is it? Is it billions? Let me look this up. I'm trying to figure this out because I can't yet. 880 billion is what this says. So I guess we're talking trillions. We're talking trillions, quite extraordinary. 880 billion in a bill, right? So it had to be just an extraordinary amount. AOC's making a good point here, and I wanted to get a clip of her making that point, but Chrome, my browser, will not allow me to pop it out. Usually you can pop out, and Instagram stinks. YouTube is so much easier to find videos in. You can easily float around. You can easily move your slider forward, back. Really hard to do with Instagram, even when you can pop out the video. And if you can't pop it out, you can't do it at all. So I watched part of the video, and, she's I just so don't get how she has appeal to people. I want to hear from people. I knew a guy who was really a big fan and he really liked her and thought she was great. He wasn't that young, I'd say maybe if you're in your 20s or early 30s, I get it. But, this was an older person, not old, but middle-aged. And I don't see this at all. I don't see the appeal that she would have for people. I only care about policy. I only care. But in terms of even the presentation, I don't think she's great at all. But here she says, I believe that the fight for the Democrat Party is really the fight over, and we'll start with this because I'm hopeless. Another reason I started this show late is I don't know really what to talk about. I don't know how to reach people. I haven't succeeded. I don't feel like people get what I'm saying here. And I've got some commentary on Facebook that really wasn't directed at me, but goes to what I'm trying to say. And it just seems so clear. We're not making any progress. Now, there are hosts out there, there are YouTube hosts that say similar to me, which is the Democrat Party is a dead end. The Democrat Party is not an ally. The Democrat Party is not going to make things better for people. The Democrat Party is not going to solve the existential crises that we face. In fact, the Democratic Party makes things worse. Now, this is certainly not calling for anyone to vote Republican. That's not the point. The point is that we need to go in a different direction. And there are hosts out there, Sabby kind of says the same things. RBN says the same things. Brianna Joy Gray, she says the same things. And they all have bigger audiences than I do, much bigger. They don't say it exactly the same way I do, but they're similar. They have many more viewers, listeners, subscribers than I do. But we all say the same thing pretty much. Do dissidents pretty much. I don't agree with do dissidents. I have some real issues with do dissidents as well. I mean, all of them. None of them are say what I say. So of course I don't agree with them. If they said what I said, then they'd say then I'd agree with them. But Sabby and Brianna Joy Gray are pretty close most of the time. And we're not getting anywhere. They may have bigger audiences. They may make a living doing this. But nobody's embracing what they have to say. It's so disheartening, which is you cannot expect, do not look to the Democratic Party to change. Do not look to the Democratic Party to ever be an ally. Do not look to the Democratic Party as having done good things in recent years. They do just a tiny bit more than the absolute, than zilch, nada. But basically, they've taken us back quite a ways. And in some ways, again, this is how bad they are. Certainly when it comes to the Ukraine war, Trump is much, much better. And he's terrible on Israel. He's pro-genocide as far as we can tell from his rhetoric, but at least the bombs haven't started falling again on Gaza. They probably will, sure, soon enough. That's another thing that's so disheartening. Here's AOC. I believe that the fight for the Democrat Party is really a fight over the future of this nation, and it should go in the direction of fierce advocacy for working class and accountability to working class Americans. AOC. All right. So fierce is like the big word, right? Fierce. We're fierce. We're fierce. Well, I didn't see any ferocity from AOC at the Democratic National Convention. All I saw was a bunch of rhetoric that promoted dishonestly Kamala Harris. I didn't see any ferocity or fierceness from AOC when it came time to demanding not only that Joe Biden step down, but that a real progressive be given an opportunity to vie for the presidential nomination. I didn't hear any of that from her. So this idea that somehow the Democratic Party needs, that there's even a fight. I mean, that's another thing, is she says the fight, like there's a fight. What fight? What fight? You tried to become the chair or the ranking Democrat in the Oversight Committee, and you didn't get it. And you were like, okay, all right, I'll walk away. So I didn't get it. Big deal. So some septuagenarian who's dying of cancer got it. So what? So Mama Bear stopped me from getting it because she didn't like the fact that I sat in her office, 7 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it was. Well, so what? C'est la vie. I'll live to fight another day. That's fine. It's ridiculous. There isn't even any fight. What fight is she talking about? There was no primary. Were you out there for Marianne Williamson? The fight between when Joe Biden was running to be renominated for president. I mean, that's a joke. Not that Marianne Williamson would have been any. I mean, she endorsed Ken Martin, the guy who said, "Oh yeah, we have the good billionaires on our side." So this is absurd for anyone to even believe there's a fight that she's part of. There's no fight. But I just want to get into this a little bit because there was this exchange on Facebook from a pretty progressive guy I'm friends with. He put it on his page. That's where the discussion was because he put that quote from AOC. I think it was on his page. And somebody said, I don't think it was him. Maybe it was. I don't really know. It doesn't even matter. So there was this question, it was promoted here. She should be the new leader of the Democratic Party. And then someone else wrote, do you really believe in her anymore? Honest question, no snark. And Marshall, not even a little bit. Of course not. Why would I believe in her? She doesn't speak truth to her party. There's no focus on the problems in the Democratic Party. And if you don't take on I know she says there's a fight. There's no fight. What fight? There's been no fight. She voted for Hakeem Jeffries to be the leader of her party in the House. There's no fight. There's nothing. So of course I don't believe in her. So there's more back and forth. And this is, I think, really relevant because what are we going to do? Our planet, our only island that we live on, there's no plan B. There's nowhere else to go. There's just Earth is burning up. We are complicit in an ongoing genocide that admittedly has been paused. The Democratic Party is all in for endless war. So what alternatives do you see? Because the Democratic Party isn't one of them. So I said, hey, I don't trust her at all. Yes, I absolutely think she's our best path forward. If Bernie were 20 years younger, he would be, but there's no one else in Congress that has as much potential as AOC does. Well, she has no potential. She's the only hope we have. Now, if we can just get Pelosi and the establishment to go kick rocks, or we're going to get into that. The establishment ain't kicking rocks. The establishment is actually kicking AOC's butt. Right now, the establishment is kicking, if you believe that AOC is the future, if you believe that she could somehow lead a renaissance, that she could bring this party back to the party of the FDR and Roosevelt, if you believe that, then you have to acknowledge right now the Democratic establishment is absolutely kicking her butt. So I wrote, yes, she is. And I said, no, I don't trust her a bit. But then I added, I think we are the only hope we have, which means abandoning the Dems and uniting as Greens or in support of another pro-worker, pro-peace, pro-environment party that is not billionaire controlled. Yeah, exactly. Why is this so hard? 240-242-5646. Please let me know. Let me know why that is so hard. Because the response was that we can't do this. Let me see if I can get you that. I can assure you there is zero chance of that ever happening. Zip, nada. If less than, okay, I get it. You don't think it's going to happen. And this is from someone who says they've consistently supported a third party and founded a Green Party local chapter. Okay, I'll accept your expertise. But assuming that's true, which we will for the sake of this conversation. Why? What is different about today than the 1850s? When there actually was a third party that supplanted the Whigs, right? It was the Whigs and the Democrats. Democrats were the pro-slavery party. The Whigs were the pro-big business party. Democrats were more like the small farmers, right? Or supposedly the small farmers were really the big planters in the South. And the Whigs were big business in the North. But they refused to take a position on slavery. And in the end, the industrialists and the factory workers who were starting to get to vote, and the North in general, just recognize, hey, slavery is really bad. We can't support it. We can't be in a party that isn't going to say no to slavery. So they created this alternative, the Republican Party. So that happened in the 1850s. Now, why are we're living in a time today when, the situation is as fraught in many ways as it was in the 1850s. I mean, we're all, if you lived in the North, if you read, I think Little Women, that family, Louisa May Alcott's family, were abolitionists. They truly opposed slavery, and they fought. I think the brother, it's called Little Women, but I don't know, the family members, nephews, what have you, the father fought for the North. They went from they joined the Massachusetts regiments, and they went down and they fought for to end slavery. They fought against the enslavers. So you could live, though, in those times in the North, and you're like, you hear about it, you read about it, but it doesn't really impact on your life necessarily. But the climate holocaust impacts on all of our lives right now. Our climate is actually noticeably changing as a direct result of human activity. I guess you could look at the images from Gaza and from Ukraine and say, our support for these the endless carnage doesn't really affect me, but it's incredibly expensive, right? Our tax money goes to that. We're not confronting other challenges that we could confront because of endless war. So we are harmed directly. Our lives are less rich. They're less positive. They're less good because we aren't breaking away from this horrible duopoly, from these two evil parties, these malevolent forces that are doing so much damage. And no one seems to be willing to do anything about it. I don't, it drives me absolutely crazy, depressed, miserable. All right, if you're watching, and I think somebody is, or is that me? I don't know. 240-242-5646. Would love to talk to you. 240-242-5646. Yeah, the phone does ring. You probably heard that maybe. I don't know. But it just baffles me. And this idea that somehow AOC can win, right? That is as bad as she is, as weak as she is, that somehow she can lead a renaissance. And actually, before we play the real winners of the Democratic Party, I just want to just show you. Let me see if I can get an Instagram of AOC, because I just I watch this, and maybe this is just me. Maybe this is just me, so I shouldn't be so insistent. But looking at AOC, watching her, and I'm thinking to myself, how is she in any way going to do anything about it? Let's see if we can get this for you, because it's also really irritating because, and I'm not hearing anything. I can't start and stop this, but here's the Instagram, which it's not great, but let's see if we can even hear this.
State of the Union chat. Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Hey everyone. Yeah. So, State of the Union just happened. If you didn't watch it, God bless you. Protect your peace.
So I wish I had a big audience just because I'd love to get feedback. What is there about her? I mean, that people find appealing, this sort of the moving, the back and forth and the hands and all. I mean, where is that going to lead us to some renaissance? Is that going to appeal to tons of people? Now you can say, well, hell, what about Trump? He's just as bad. I'm like, yeah, Trump's awful too. I don't get that either. But if you want to compare to politicians who are appealing, who reach, who I think have some charisma, yeah, Obama. I like a lot of what he did. But I mean, he was serious. He stood up there. He spoke clearly. He made sense. Same with Bill Clinton. So you want to find a woman who, I don't like Nancy Pelosi. Trust me. I don't think much of Nancy Pelosi. But, I can take her seriously. I can watch her speak. I've seen her in debates. I can take what she has to say and be like, okay, well, I get where she's going with that. I understand her points. But this is just totally unappealing.
Someone said, glad you stayed away. Me too. Yeah, I didn't go to all that. I knew that was going to be a mess. And personally, I watched it from home. I paid attention to what the president was saying. I watched it, so you didn't have to. But so if you didn't, that's okay.
All right. I mean, enough. There's just nothing there. It's just empty. Now, she goes on for 53 minutes. She talks about how there are going to be cuts to Medicare, Medicaid likely. And that's fair, right? I mean, that's policy. Talk about it. But just that sort of girlish stuff, it's embarrassing. She's 35. She's not a little girl. She's 35 years old. That's the best the Democratic Party can come up with? She's embarrassing. She really is. And if you want even worse, this guy's even worse. So and again, the Democratic Party is kicking her ass. If there's a real conflict within the Democratic Party, she's losing it, and she's losing it to this guy. She's losing it to it's amazing. This is where we are. We're a failing state. We really are. So she's losing to this guy, Brad Schneider, who has all the personality of a glass of milk, skim milk.
Welcome back. As Democrats debate the future of their party, a group of moderates called the New Democrat Coalition, which is the largest bloc of Democrats in the House, is out with a three-pillared vision to reach voters. Those pillars are economic growth and lowering costs, healthy and safe communities, and strong national security and defense.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. So could you come up with more just sort of generic pablum? Economic growth and lowering costs, healthy and safe communities, strong national security and defense. What do those even mean? Nobody could, you're not going to object to them. They don't tell you anything about what this group is going to do. Nothing. And by the way, we shouldn't even be striving for economic growth because we need to stop growing. We're growing. We've grown far too fat, too big. We can't, it's not sustainable, our size. We need fair, just wealth and economic wealth distribution, income distribution. That's what we need to focus on. We need sustainability. So this is it's just a load of crap. It's just junk. Now, if you wanted to have a real policy vision, you could say this. Healthcare for all. Everyone has healthcare. Everyone has shelter. We stop burning fossil fuels. I mean, that's a vision, right? This is just talking points. But the New Democrat Coalition is about supporting the billionaire class. It's about the donors. And that means we don't commit to anything that is popular, that people would like. Even Trump, to his credit, and he gets credit for this, he says, I want peace, right? I want peace. And a lot of people don't. We had this discussion with Arlen. Arlen's like, oh, everyone wants peace. No, they don't. That's just not true. Antony Blinken's clients don't want peace. Avril Haine's clients don't want peace. Lloyd Austin's clients don't want peace. So it's not true that everyone wants peace. Lots of people don't want peace. To say you want peace and then to push for it, that actually is leadership. That's bold. There's no one I haven't heard AOC say that. I haven't heard Bernie say that.
The group says it is launching working groups to come up with ideas to translate into policy.
I just love, they need working groups. They need working groups. How do you need a working group to tell you that Americans want to be able to go to the doctor when they're sick, when they're injured, and not have to pay out of pocket? How do you need a working group to tell you that? Is there anything that makes sense about that except, well, we can't think on our own, because if we do, we could offend our donors. And that's the one thing they'll never do.
And joining me now to discuss this is Illinois Democratic Congressman Brad Schneider. He is the chair of the New Democratic Coalition. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it, Congressman.
Thank you.
So talk to me about this pitch. What is your vision for the path forward for the Democratic Party?
Well, the vision is doing what we did with New Dems in the last election. In fact, as the tide kind of flowed against Democrats in general, New Dems elected 25 new members in addition to protecting 85 of our 87 incumbents. So we're 110 Democrats in the Senate, very strong, who are focused on addressing.
Okay, let's say they're the biggest group. Okay, so this is the one thing he said that is relevant. Supposedly, there's this war for the soul of the Democratic Party between the AOCs and the Brad Schneiders, right? The ones who care about workers. We're going to be fierce in our defense of working class people. That's what AOC says. Of course, that was odd for someone who was a huge backer of Kamala Harris to make that statement, because there's nothing about Kamala Harris that's pro-working class. But okay, there's supposedly the AOC wing, and then there's the Brad Schneider wing, the New Democrat Coalition wing. By the way, isn't it New Democratic Coalition? Shouldn't it be? I don't know. They hate being called just the Democrat Party, but I guess it's okay now to call them the Democrat Coalition. So apparently there's this war between the two, right? But the New Democrat Coalition is clearly winning, because there's more in this New Democrat Coalition than there are in the progressive wing. It used to be C Congressional Progressive Caucus, I think they're called. Yeah, they were the most numerous caucus in the Democratic Party. Now it's this New Democrat Coalition, which is centrist, moderate, pro-billionaire. AOC, are you going to leave the party? Are you going to join with the Greens? Are you going to go to Bernie and say, hey, it's time we leave these corrupt, bought and paid for bosses, the people who represent the bosses? Because that's the only way I can see you getting any power. Or you could get power, but your power would be simply to do what the donor class wants you to do, right? So this came from the New Democrat Coalition. They had this retreat. Now, Third Way put their imprimatur on it. Third Way, of course, is the Wall Street funded think tank group that influences the centrist Dems. And what they had to say, they were part of this. What they had to say was, among others, is we're going to revise Democratic fundraising priorities. Move away from the dominance of small dollar donors whose preferences may not align. That's just an extraordinary, when you read that, isn't that's who your Democrat, this is the New Democrat Coalition, the largest group of Democrats. They want to move away from the dominance of small dollar donors whose preferences may not align with the broader electorate. Instead, we're going to move towards the billionaire donors. We want them to dominate because their preferences do align. I mean, isn't that amazing? Whose preferences could align less with the broader electorate than the billionaire donors? I agree small dollar donors don't always have the same preferences as the broader electorate, because small dollar donors like myself are more affluent than the broader electorate. So our preferences aren't always exactly the same. And many small dollar donors, I will say this, tend to be often focused more on identity politics because they have a little more money. So they're slightly less concerned with kitchen table issues like how can I pay the rent? They're not going to necessarily be as concerned with, say, rent control or with, jobs being exported to Asia or Latin America as the broader electorate is. Or with healthcare, because even though lots of working middle class and upper middle class people struggle with healthcare bills, it's not quite the same looming threat every day, every week, every month. The fear that you could lose everything if mom gets cancer, if your arm gets caught in a machine and you can't do your job anymore. There isn't that looming fear if you're, if you have a white collar job, if you were a government worker until recently and you got hurt, you could take time off and you'd still get paid. You'd have decent health care. So yes, those people, those are the small dollar donors. Their concerns are often more about, well, what about my identity group? What about my, I'm trans or my kid is trans and I sure want her to be able to play sports and win. That's my priority, not I want everyone to I want to make sure I have health care. Or, my trans kid, I want them to be able to get a scholarship, not I can't. Even if my child can't go to college, even if we got a scholarship, because there's just no money for them not to be working. So yes, small dollar donors have slightly different priorities sometimes than the broader electorate, but they align a hell of a lot more closely with the general electorate than the billionaire class. What does it take? What does it take to get people, to get those of you who have been over and over and over betrayed by the Democratic Party, whose interests, whose desires, whose needs are completely ignored by this group? What does it take for you to just say, no more? I can't do it anymore. I can't vote for these people anymore. Because I don't know what to say. I've lost it. I don't know. I don't know how to convince people. I don't know if I ever did. But I sure as hell don't know now. All right, and I'm done. I got nothing more today. So I'll see you tomorrow for the free-for-all.